Have you ever thought about how much you communicate? Studies on communication find that on average, we talk 1 to 2 hours a day. Most of us listen more than twice that, and if you add in the time we spend on social media, messaging, and email, which is 5 to 11 hours a day, we communicate the equivalent of 2 books a day. You never knew you were such prolific authors, did you? So let's talk about your books. What are your books about? Are you creating good books? Mystery novels? Instruction manuals? With so much experience, your books ought to be awesome, right? Unfortunately, no. Quantity does not equal quality. Studies on communication also find that we spend up to 3 hours a day clarifying what was previously said, which for some people is merely repeating themselves, but at a higher volume. In the workplace, our books on miscommunication cost organizations millions of dollars in lost productivity. At home, communication problems are the leading cause of divorce. How many of you are parents? You want to talk about your books on parenting? It's a really small book for a lot of parents. Parents, on average, spend only 15 minutes a week in serious conversation with their kids. Think about that. Let's talk about your books on health. Studies find that over 1/3 of injuries are related to miscommunications. 20% of malpractice lawsuits against doctors are due to communication errors by the doctor, by the staff, or by the patient. Sometimes we talk too much, sometimes we don't talk enough. How do you like the books being created by our government and the media? Some call it propaganda, some call it fake news, some call it fact, some call it fiction. Whatever it is, there's a whole library of it being created every day. How many of you consider yourselves to be good communicators? Okay, you ready to take a test? Can you share differences of opinion with others without arguing? Okay. Can you receive feedback without becoming defensive? Can you listen without giving advice? Can you help other people without telling them what to do? Okay? Can you share your feelings and concerns with others rather than keep them to yourself? How many of you right now have a thought that you should be sharing with others that you're keeping to yourself? I can tell who you are. It's every one of you. I'm Mike Hawkins. I'm an executive coach. I am the author of 7 books on leadership and coaching, and I'm CEO of Alpine Link, a boutique consulting company. I have written 7 books on leadership and coaching and worked with thousands of managers and executives. Guess what one improvement area people ask for help with the most? Communications. Why? Great communicators make the best leaders. They are the most influential and persuasive. They build the highest performing teams, and they make the most money. Do you think most people know they have a communication problem? No. It's a huge blind spot. Most of us consider other circumstances or other people as the source of our problems when in fact communications is maybe the bigger problem. Have you ever blamed someone or somebody else or something else for a problem that you later discovered was yours? We tend to blame other circumstances and other people rather than take responsibility for it ourselves. Managers tend to think that their employees are the problem. Employees tend to think their managers are the problem. Parents tend to think their kids are the problem. Kids tend to think their parents are the problem. Siblings learn at an early age to blame each other. You made the mess. No, you made the mess. Whether at home or at work, We often don't realize that poor communications is at the root of many of our problems. How many of you have a personal development goal to be a better communicator? A few? It's interesting though, isn't it? Because a lot of us have goals to improve our business, to make more money, to be happier, but not to improve our communication skills. Yet improving our communication skills is the key to achieving a lot of our goals. So how should you communicate? How do you persuade people, motivate people, coach people, and build great relationships? It boils down to one word: pull. Great communicators pull people rather than push people. They attract people like a magnet rather than repel them. Every day, people need help, yet get repelled. Rather than a helping hand, they get a pushing hand. They receive a reprimand or a lecture instead. For example, let's say your best friend has a really bad idea. She wants to create a small business that competes with Amazon. Good luck. You meet for coffee, you have a choice. You can pull her or you can push her. If you push her, you might say something like, "Joan, you can't compete with Amazon. Their retail prices are lower than your wholesale prices. Don't be so foolish." In contrast, if you wanted to pull her, you might say something like, "Joan, you overachiever. That's awesome. How do you plan to do that?" Did you notice that both approaches made the same point, but in different ways? The pulling approach used an asking style. The pushing approach used a telling style. Here's another example. Let's say you come home and you discover that your 12-year-old son has been playing instead of doing his homework. You got two options. You can push him or you can pull him. If you push him, you might say something like, "Son, I see that you've been playing instead of doing your homework. You know you have to do your homework first. Go do your homework." In contrast, if you wanted to pull your son, you might say something like, "Son, I see you've been playing instead of doing your homework. You know, I like to play too, but what happens when you play before you do your homework?" Did you see the difference? One of them pulls people into a conversation. One of them pushes people away from a conversation. Being pushed is like being managed instead of being led. I had a boss once who always made me feel managed. Have you ever had a boss that made you feel managed? Rather than have a conversation with me and ask me questions and try to help me think through things, he would just tell me what to do. Rather than coach me, he would try to control me. "Mike, that's not how you do this. Don't do it like that. Do it like this." Consider the physics of pulling versus pushing. When you are traveling through the airport and you have your roll-around suitcase, would you rather pull it or push it? If you are going up a step with your wheelbarrow, would you rather push it or pull it? You'd rather pull it. You'd rather pull it. Whether moving objects or people, pulling is more effective. Consider that you have a tool belt around your waist, and it contains your communication tools rather than your construction tools. What's in your tool belt? Do you have a magnet or hammer? Push communicators have a hammer, and it's well worn because they use it all the time. When they want somebody to do something, they merely tell them what to do. And if they don't do it, they tell them again, and then louder. And if they still don't do it, rather than receive help, they receive a threat or intimidation, which in today's workplace is technically called bullying. They may create a lot of books, but not books that motivate and inspire. Why do people push? It's natural. Pushing may not be very effective, but without thinking, we tend to push things. Pulling is counterintuitive. So, what do great communicators do? If they don't use a hammer, what do? They use tools that pull. So here's 4 tools that great communicators and influential leaders use in particular to pull. Tool number 1, prioritize. No matter what you want to accomplish in life, it involves people. Great communicators make people their top priority. You may think you're in the construction business, financial business, software business, or some other business, but more fundamentally, you're in the people business. Flip your priorities. Put people and building relationships with people ahead of projects and tasks. Adopt a mindset that values authentic conversations. Allow time to talk with, laugh with, and cry with people. Tool number 2, understand. Great communicators get to know people. They understand how they think and how they feel. They get to know what really drives people. They relate to people. They make people feel valued and heard. What tool do they use to understand? Questions. They ask questions. Pulling is not telling. It's the exact opposite. Many people get it backwards. Pulling is asking questions, listening, being empathetic, and understanding. Many spouses, bosses, coworkers, friends, they think about what to say instead of what to ask. When you think about what to say, you don't listen. You don't get to know people. Even if you have an agenda or you want to share your opinion, ask questions and listen first. You'll get your chance to talk later. If you want to be a better communicator, immediately use this tool. If you tend to tell your spouse, your kids, your employees, or your friends what to do, stop it. You'll be amazed at how effective asking is rather than telling. Tool number 3 is learn. Great communicators and leaders are learners. They also help other people learn. When you're leading, most of your communication is with the intent to influence or to coach. When you're in a position to influence, you help people develop. Learning and development starts with awareness. You pull people forward by helping them become self-aware of how they do things, what they do well, and what they might do better. When somebody makes a mistake, you let them retain their dignity, but you help them learn from it. With your learning tool, you help other people acquire and understand the tools that they need to put in their tool belt. Tool number 4 is leap. The real measure of how well you communicate is how well you persuade other people to take action. Effective communicators move people from knowing to doing. They move people to take action. Like coaching an aerial acrobat. You help people let go of the trapeze they are on and make the leap to another trapeze. Whatever it is, you make people feel good about themselves. You build up people and their confidence. You instill hope rather than fear. You give people the motivation, the learning, and the plans they need to move forward. Jim hired me to be his executive coach. He was next in line to be his company's CEO. But he had a problem. He was a pusher. He was controlling. He told people what to do rather than foster conversations with them and help them think through things. He was writing books, but they weren't very persuasive. Top performers and self-starters didn't like working for him. One time, without gaining any buy-in beforehand, he told people to complete an assignment by the end of the day on Friday. By 5 p.m. on Friday, guess what? No one had completed the assignment. They were so tired of being told what to do that they were ready to quit or be fired. They didn't care. Jim was furious. He was ready to admonish them, but after some reflection, he started thinking, maybe he was the problem. Maybe he needed to change. He realized he had merely told them what to do. Jim decided to change his approach. He decided to attract people rather than repel them. He decided to pull people instead of push them. Number 1, he changed his priorities. He put people and building relationships ahead of projects and tasks. Number 2, he started asking questions, listening and getting to know people and truly understanding what drives them. Number 3, he helped people be better, but not by telling. He provided coaching. He fostered conversations that made people think. Lastly, he motivated people to take action. He moved people from knowing what to do to actually doing it, to make that leap. After Jim retired as hammer, his people felt more valued. They became more loyal. They became more motivated. They became more engaged. They gave more effort, and Jim became his company's next CEO. In virtually every conversation you have a choice. You can be a great coach, you can build up people, and you can pull them, or you can broadcast negative energy and you can push them. You can choose to nurture a meaningful dialogue with people, or you can just tell them what to do. Great communicators choose to be a positive influence and attract people. When you go home or back to the office, put new tools in your tool belt. You might be amazed at how well pulling tools work. You become more influential, you become more persuasive, you build more buy-in, and you build better relationships. Using a hammer may be great for driving nails, but not for driving people. Thank you.